Boom! Welcome into sportsBIT. Betting Inside today, Pauly and Teddy. Monday, February 20th, deep dive. What to expect in the second half. We'll do the Western Conference today. Also, big game breakdown, the doubleheader on ESPN, Texas, West Virginia, and Miami against Virginia. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Coming up in a second. Big show. Good to be back. And, of course, a play of the day. We try to make it 4 in a row for the viewers out there. I don't know what that was last night, Teddy. That wasn't a basketball game. That was an abomination. They didn't even pretend to play defense. And that total, I saw 290 on Friday. I thought that was the All-Star game total. It was the rookie-sophomore game. I mean, they set a record for points in the first quarter. They set a record for points in the first half. I thought someone was going to score 200.
Well, did you see the tweet from ESPN Stats and Info? Last year, in the highest scoring All-Star game in NBA history, there were 57 dunks. This year, there were 42 dunks in the first half of the game. Look at the total there were 8 total free throws yesterday, Pauly. 8. And 2 total block shots, which says there wasn't a whole lot of physical play in the paint. That's the nature of the All-Star game. I mean, and you can see the evolution. Should we throw up that graphic now? You can take a look at the evolution of the closing total and the total points scored and what's happened during the course of this decade. I mean, we were sitting with totals 90 points lower. 90 points lower in 2010 compared to where it was this year. This year's total was 32 points higher than last year's closing total, and that total was 19 points higher than the total in 2005, Pauly. And yet every one of these games, with one exception, has gone over the posted total. The markets are adjusting. They just haven't been able to adjust enough.
Adam Silver's got to step in and have a talk with the players. I mean, you saw the Pro Bowl. It was at least a football game. They had a scoreless first quarter. So they've they've come around in terms of the Pro Bowl, which is saying something. But how it's taken off. I mean, you almost had 2 guys break the record. If Westbrook plays the whole game, he breaks Wilt's record too.
But, I mean, the All-Star game is not a competitive contest. It's an exhibition.
It used to be. That's not true. It used to be.
It's an exhibition. It's for fans to watch the superstars dunk.
But they don't want to watch. They want to watch a basketball game. They want to watch a competitive game. Guys are just getting out of the way and they're throwing alley-oops.
That hasn't changed. You know, what's changed is the pace as much as any other factor, don't you think? Or do you think that 20 years ago guys were playing more defense than they are now? No, I don't think so. I think it's just more, the pace is faster and the three-point shooting is better.
No big men, and also they don't even pretend. They don't even pretend to play defense, and they're just out there, put on a dunk show, and that's it. Speaking of which, All-Star Weekend, Eric Gordon wins a 3-point shootout.
Nice call, Pauly. Well done.
Thank you. I saw as high as plus 650, and Little Dog wins the dunk contest.
Yeah, what happened to your boy from the D-League?
I don't know. He had scored a 50 on one of them. It was the whole story. Guys kept missing dunks.
Yeah, but kudos because both Eric Gordon and Glenn Robinson III cashed big big juicy dog prices for those who backed them. So kudos for those of you out there who took a shot with a recreational wager on a couple of nice long shot payouts.
All right, bad bets. Maryland bet down to 6 at Wisconsin. They lost by 11. Koenig didn't start, but he came off the bench and played 31 minutes. Big win for the Badgers.
Yeah, the markets were all obsessed with Koenig, as if he's. It's not like he's played particularly well in recent weeks. He's been ice cold, something we talked about on the weekend preview edition. I think we talked about it one day last week with Koenig's struggles. But it was a really sloppy game. Wisconsin won the battle of the boards. It's 44-27 on the glass. There was a ton of Maryland money, understandably so. The Terps had a big freight train rolling. Big bandwagon, 13-2 against the spread their previous 15 ball games. And when you have those type of runs and you're winning high-profile games on the highway, you're going to attract a betting attention. And, the Badgers, they lost to Northwestern. They lost to Michigan last week. 2 squads that are definitely on the bubble. And all the quotes after the game, Nigel Hayes saying, quote, "I would definitely say yes. That's kind of why we dropped the last 2. We finally have a sense of urgency on our own end." And that was certainly the case for the Badgers down the stretch in their win over Maryland. Bad result for the bettors, good result for the books.
And a bad bet, Georgetown. Bet down to 5.5 at Creighton. Since the two blowout losses when Watson went out to start, with the big loss of Watson, Creighton kind of getting it together. They win by 17.
Yeah, and one of those blowout losses came at Georgetown. They lost by 20 to the Hoyas. And they certainly played with the level of intensity that indicated revenge was on their mind. I was surprised to see the Georgetown money plus 6.5 down to plus 5.5. Blue Jays with the 17-point victory cruise over the Hoyas.
Another bad bet. They bet Syracuse big time up to 4 at Georgia Tech. Passed and with another big home win.
Yeah, Georgia Tech, who have they beaten at home so far in terms of outright upsets? You got North Carolina, you got Clemson, you got Florida State, you got Notre Dame, and here another outright upset win over Syracuse. This was a big game for McCarnish Pavilion. They had a rare sellout. I think it's only the third sellout of the season. There was whiteout conditions. And it's not like Syracuse has been winning games on the road. They have 2 road victories all year. One came by a single point. The other one came in overtime. So I was surprised to see all the orange money and not disappointed to see the orange money. I had a Yellow Jackets take it in my pocket, and they took control in the second half.
Yeah, well, they made it interesting late, which should not have happened. I was watching that game. That was ridiculous. UAB bet up to 3.5 against Western Kentucky. They lost by 12. Blazers never led. Trailed by 14 at the half. Never made a run in that one. And I watched this game as well. Good game as Patino was there checking out his son. Minnesota at home to Michigan. And a 3 late sent it into overtime, but Minnesota gets the money.
Well, that's just it. You can't complain about a bad beat if you had Michigan plus the deuce at Minnesota, because you lose in regulation if G.J. Wilson doesn't hit the three-pointer to send it overtime. And frankly, they weren't covering down the stretch. They were down 8 with 2 minutes to go. Wolverines ended up losing by 5 in OT. Fortuitous cover if you had the Gophers, but they certainly were on the wrong side in that ball game.
Yeah, and bad for the books. Something like this happens every night. It really is crazy. We've talked about it here on sportsBIT. UNLV opens 14, closes 12.5, 13 in some spots. They lose by 13. They laid it in twice on their final possessions.
Well, yeah, the last 2 possessions, they hit the final layup with 5 seconds left, and the Rebels sneak right in between the number. We're not talking about a big window here. They opened 14. They closed 12.5. There are a lot of books still had a 13 and ended up pushing on that, but certainly not a good result for the house with that late UNLV layup, letting the game fall right in the middle.
How long have you lived here?
Moved into Las Vegas in August of 1998.
Yep, certainly maybe the lowest point in UNLV basketball history. They have 17 losses. They've lost, 7 in a row, and they're in last place in a terrible league.
Wow, yeah, that's a good point, and I don't disagree. This is probably the lowest point since I've been in Vegas, no question. But nobody expected UNLV to be any good this year. It's been a program in turmoil, and this season they're paying the price for it.
Got swept by San Jose State. What did they win 3 games a couple of years ago? Holy cow. Up next, big game breakdown. We'll start with Miami and Virginia on sportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on sportsBIT, betting insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Time for a big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. First game on ESPN, Miami hits the road to take on Virginia. Virginia 9.5, 117.5 the total. Early money on the under. Virginia looks like a tired team, 4 games in 9 days. This is second half in OT of the last 3. Outscored 57-41 at Va Tech, 44-30 against Duke, and a horror show Saturday, 31-19 at UNC. That's a total of outscored 132-90, a 40-minute game equivalent of 75-51, Teddy.
Yeah, they're getting slapped around in the second half in each of the last 3 ball games, as you mentioned, and playing now their 4th game in 9 days isn't going to help the Virginia Cavaliers overcome some of their recent concerns. And the break in the game at North Carolina, they were beaten so badly that Bennett emptied the bench early. No player went more than 30 minutes in that game. Starters only 125 out of a possible 200 minutes in that contest. But that was pretty ugly to watch, Paul. As you mentioned, 15 of 54 from the field for Virginia in that ball game. 2 of 20 from three-point range. And, by the way, they got clocked on the glass, 40-23. The Tony Bennett quote after the game, I think, is worth reading here. Quote, "We fought hard against Duke, came up short. We fought hard at Virginia Tech, played some quality ball, came up short. Tonight, we weren't even close. Offensively, we struggled. It's no mystery we don't score a ton inside. So when we're missing some perimeter shots, some were pretty good shots, that puts a lot of pressure on us defensively. And their offensive talent really got going. I think our poor offense hurt our defense, and then it sort of turned into one of those deals. So here's Virginia reeling right now, and they're laying 9.5, Pauly, which tells us that Miami's got some issues of their own.
Yeah, that's a lot of points to lay with a team that's a ton of issues right now. Miami ran some good stuff against Clemson, but Clemson's 13th in the ACC in defense. Virginia's number 1. Miami's starting point guard was served the last of a 3-game suspension. Larinaga only has 7 players in the rotation, 3 of them freshmen.
Yeah, and that includes a new starting point guard. You got Bruce Brown, and so you have 3 Frosh with the new starting point guard. You also have the sophomore, is Undu, I believe his name is pronounced. So we're talking about a very young team with point guard issues. 4 of the 7 have never faced Virginia in that pack line defense before, and they only have 1 day to prep for a road game in a very hostile environment against an elite defense coming off a bad effort. Jim Larinaga, following the game against Clemson, quote, "I was most pleased offensively with 19 assists and only 7 turnovers. We shared the ball extremely well. We had 4 guys in double figures and another guy with 9, and everybody who played scored. So everybody's contributing at the offensive end, and if you look at the assist breakdown, you see that we are even getting assists from multiple players now." So Larinaga is a coach who we trust and like in these type of spots, but I don't know if I trust him and like him here, Pauly. It's not an easy game for Miami going up against what's likely to be a feisty Virginia defensive effort.
Yep, a low-scoring game. I'm with you on that one. The second game, live odds, sportsbookreview.com, Texas and West Virginia. Look at this line. West Virginia 16, 142 the total. One of the deepest teams in the nation, but back-to-back overtime games could wear them down. Huggins tightened things up after the collapse at Kansas, played his starters more. Well, it could hurt him in a quick turnaround. Adrian, Carter, and Phillips played 47, 45, and 41 minutes on Saturday, all season highs. He gave his team 2 days off after the Kansas loss to get fresh, but the end game failed again. They're up 6 with a minute to play, Teddy. Then all hell broke loose.
No, and this has been an issue, obviously, for West Virginia in recent contests. And the fact that Huggins gave his team 2 days off after the Kansas loss to get fresh, and then the end game failed again, that is a problem. And of course, coming off that double OT game, coming off the double OT game on Saturday, now playing with the short turnaround. And look, I mean, West Virginia's defense is special. It really is. They held Texas Tech to 2 of 15 from the field in overtime. They ended up winning the game by 9. And of course, that may have been Tech being gassed as well. But when you read opposing coaches' quotes about Huggy Bear's defense, they are one after the next after the next. This is the best defense you've seen all year. Wow, they're tough. We didn't get into our offense for the entire 40 minutes, etc., etc. West Virginia brings that potential to the table, but man, you put that team in a half-court setting, and they're not necessarily pretty to watch offensively. And we saw it obviously down the stretch as they collapsed against Kansas and did it again this past weekend. Makes it a little bit difficult to lay points with them in a game that's likely to be competitive. The question is this game going to be competitive, Pauly? Because at plus 16, the markets don't seem to think that it will be.
Yes, I think it will be. More on that coming up. But Texas, disappointing season. They made the tournament last year, and now they've lacked depth and experience. And when that happens, you lose close games. 7 Big 12 losses by 5 points or less, 4-10 in league play. Lost by 3 to Kansas State on Saturday. Shaka, quote, "I'm disappointed our record is what it is. You question what you do as a coach. You have to look close at what you need to do differently. We've got to get better. Be solid on defense. Take care of the ball. Make your free throws down the stretch. We've been in a lot of close games. It comes down to grabbing the bull by the horns and taking accountability of this. That's everyone in our program," end quote. Well, what do you think here? They played January 14th, and it was close.
Yeah, grab the bull by the horns. That's what Shaka Smart is saying. And of course, when you have you're 4-10 in conference, and 7 of those 10 losses have come by 5 or less, that's excruciating. I mean, it really is. The question is how much heart Texas brings to the table in this ballgame, because it's not going to be an easy game for them. But they haven't shown quit. We haven't seen that from the Longhorns yet. And as you mentioned, they played back in January. West Virginia minus 11 in that ballgame. Final score 74-72. Longhorns gave them everything they could handle. And you look at the meetings last year. Texas plus 12, they win the game outright at West Virginia. Texas minus 2, and they win the game outright there as well. Obviously, they were chalk, but they win by 7. So that's 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread, and 2 of the 3-point spread decisions have been by 9 or less. Average margin 11 ATS. And when you think about Texas conceptually, Shaka Smart is a guy who presses a lot. He understands presses as well as any coach in college basketball. So maybe the fact that Texas sees so much press in practice and their coach understands the concept so well explains how they've had so much success, both straight up and against the spread in recent meetings against West Virginia.
Then what happened to West Virginia when Kansas pressed them late? They didn't know what to do. They kept turning it over and blew that big lead. Good points there. We'll get back to that game coming up. Up next, deep dive. Second half of the NBA season. Western Conference today, Eastern Conference on Thursday. It's coming up next on sportsBIT, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on sportsBIT, betting insight today. Fun week of shows coming up. Our first soccer guest tomorrow. He does a lot of videos with Natalie. We'll talk to Nigel. We'll talk Premier League, Leicester City looking at relegation, and Champions League. We'll talk to Nigel coming up Tuesday. Wednesday, Ian Cameron to talk hockey. A lot of teams on runs here in the NHL. A lot of coaches getting fired. And we'll talk to Ian coming up. And then Thursday, the deep dive, Eastern Conference preview, second half with the association. Today, it's the West. Before we get to that, will Golden State win the title? Bet Chris, bookmaker, yes, minus 190, no, plus 155. I believe that's the highest in a long time. You even got to go back to the Jordan Bulls. Cavs Warriors final, yes, minus 165. I don't think anybody can beat the Warriors in a 7-game series in the West. We'll see what the Celtics do. Maybe they can make a big trade here. You're hearing Jimmy Butler, and now you see the Cousins report that maybe Ranadive wants to make a move. Oh, if the Celtics can make a big trade, the East becomes very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm with you conceptually that there's no one that's going to beat Golden State. This entire regular season in the West is to see who's the second best team in the West is. The Warriors are minus, and let's throw those odds up now. Take a look at the odds to win the West. You think there's any value on the Lakers or the Suns there? Yeah. No, thank you. Golden State minus 370 to win the West, which tells you what a class difference there is between the Warriors and anybody else. And there's not another team that is capable. The question that we have to ask when we look at the Western Conference, A, who can we make money with? And B, who's the second best team in the West? Is it San Antonio? Is it Houston? Is it somebody from the middle of the pack that's going to come out and make a run in the postseason? Those are, in my mind, the biggest questions to discuss for the second half. Or really, as we call it the second half, it's the final third of the NBA season. The season's already 2/3 over.
I still like Houston. I like a rested Houston team. The schedule's caught up to them there down the stretch, but it comes down to matchups, too. They'll give San Antonio fits if they meet up in the second round there, but and also it's a tough. I know they won at Golden State already, but that's a tough matchup it is. Anybody's going against Golden State. Okay, tip number 1: don't try to make money with bad teams down the stretch.
Yeah, and this is so key. When you talk about the NBA, you're going to find all these teams that have extra value as they're tanking in March and into April. Oh, look, there's an extra 3. My power rating number isn't this high. It should only be laying 11, and they're laying 14. If there's one strategy, one proven, time-tested NBA strategy of the second half of the season, God forbid, don't try to bet the bad teams. Don't try to bet the squads. And especially Portland stands out as a team. I don't want to even try to get on Portland, okay? A playoff team from last year, a veteran squad with higher expectations. They're already dead last in the NBA when it comes to their point spread record, 22-34 ATS for the Blazers. And I would expect continued ATS failures for Portland over the back half of the campaign. But they're not the only bad team that I'm not going to be looking to bet on as the NBA season goes through its stretch run.
Yeah, and that leads us to number 2. One of the biggest disappointments so far the first half, the T-Wolves.
Yeah, and Minnesota didn't play any defense. And that's obviously although they played better in the stretch leading up to the All-Star break. When you look at the money losers from the first half, Portland stands out. Minnesota stands out. Utah's another team that's worth talking about. They've been overvalued in the markets. They have really strong advanced metric numbers, especially on defense, and we've seen a propensity for the Jazz to blow leads and be unable to cover margins as chalk. So Minnesota and Utah have been bad point spread teams early through the first 2/3 of the campaign, and I'm not convinced either squad turns it around after the break.
Is there still value with the Rockets, who kind of limped into the break as they had some tough losses down the stretch, but they had some injuries. Anderson was sick, Gordon was sick, and they had a lot of road games.
Well, yeah, they had that brutal scheduling stretch. I mean, absolutely brutal throughout the month of January and into February. I think it started even before Christmas. Now, we are talking about the team that is the single best point spread team in the Western Conference through the first half of the campaign. And I think they may still be overvalued or undervalued as we head into the second half of the campaign. There's not a ton of market respect for Houston. There's not a ton of market respect for D'Antoni or Harden or the Rockets as a whole. That's why they've made their backers so much money, Paulie, and I think that has all the potential to continue. When you talk around Vegas and say who's the second best team in the West, I'm not hearing a lot of Houstons from the sharpest minds out there, and that tells me that if the Rockets really are the second best team in the West, and I think they are, that there's money to be made still with the Houston Rockets.
I don't think there's any value with the Clippers. Their bench is so bad. What do you think?
See, you look at the Clips and another team that made a nice little run under the radar right before the All-Star break. They had a good road trip. They came home. They took care of business. I think there might be value with the Clippers. Even if they're not legit contenders to win the title, we're talking about a squad that A, has been there before, B, is looking to come together, C, hasn't played that well so far this season, and D, the markets are not in love with. And that may be the biggest issue with LA, is that the markets are a little bit light on this team, and they have a chance to play to be the second or third best team in the West going into the playoffs. So I think you're more likely to make money with the Clippers than going against them right now. But that's just a gut reaction.
Okay, and the trade deadline 4 days away, and we'll do more on this on the Eastern Conference Thursday because maybe the Bulls move Butler. But I'll tell you, the Pelicans, they were in the talks, the reports from Wojo about getting the Kings and Cousins. I mean, the Pelicans want to make a move here and try to get that 8 seed.
They sure do. And New Orleans is looking to be buyers at the deadline. And I don't know if they're going to get a big name like Boogie to come there, but from all indications, New Orleans is a team that wants the 8 seed. They played like they wanted the 8 seed in that last week before the break. Remember, they went straight up on the road as dogs at Minnesota, Phoenix, and Memphis. Now, Minnesota and Phoenix obviously not elite squads, but what was key in my mind, watching the Pelicans play those games, there was a sense of urgency for New Orleans. And you have a team that's looking to be a buyer and playing with a sense of urgency. You have though I don't know if Anthony Davis winning the All-Star MVP hurts value-wise for New Orleans, but they certainly have that type of potential to be a moneymaker coming out of the break.
Good tweet here from Joe Fortenbaugh, and you can take advantage of this too out there, guys. First game back after the break. Here's Fortenbaugh's tweet. Over the last 3 years, NBA teams have combined to post an over-under record of 54, 35, and 1. That's 60% to the over in their first game back off the break, Teddy.
Yeah, and again, it's not necessarily something you want to bet blindly, but you can anticipate that teams will be a step slow defensively coming out of the break. That first game back has been strong to the over in recent years, and if you're on the fence on a play, well, should I play this over or not? This little stat may get you to the window in a day, on a night, Thursday and Friday, when we will be looking for overs to cash.
All right, money time, play of the day. Let's make it 4 in a row for the viewers. We talked about it earlier. Back to this game, betting number 713, Texas plus 16. First game was close. Shaka's teams play hard every game, and they have not lost a conference game by this spread all season. Let's grab the 16 and keep it going with Texas plus 16, betting number 713. Again, Nigel Steely on tomorrow to talk soccer in the deep dive. Wednesday, hockey with Ian Cameron. And look for Steve Sear next week, by the way, subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Desert. The great stories in Vegas about the high rollers. You will not believe these stories. $25,000 a hand, $50,000 a hand in blackjack, the demands. People commit suicide. It's a crazy book. We'll talk to Steve about that, all that coming up. Loaded week coming up on sportsBIT. And then a week from tomorrow, the first conference tournament start, Teddy. March right around the corner.
I'm telling you, you can start to smell it right around now, Paul. March Madness. It's a-coming.
We love it. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.